Racing with Chickens, Daniel Thomas Moran. Most people have strange jobs when they're in high school and college, and I was no different. Because of the baby boom, there were a lot of us wandering around the 1970s looking for part-time jobs. There was no such thing as help wanted ads or guys named Craig with lists of jobs just begging for applicants. When you needed a job, you might get lucky and be tipped off by a friend who worked in a place where someone had just quit. Or you just walked door to door around town asking if they were hiring. That was a job in itself. I got fired from the very first job I ever had, and it was not because I was not doing it well. It was for subversive labor activities. Mr. Solovev paid $1.60 an hour to his crew of 15-year-olds who worked in his landscaping business. He was a nice man who liked to inspire us kids by telling us that if we pushed really hard, we could finish cutting the lawns we were to cut that day a bit earlier and get to go home a little sooner. It was a miserable, filthy, sweaty job, but we worked really hard and felt great about it. One week, as we bounced down the road with a collection of lawnmowers in the back of his truck, I suggested to the other lads that we were getting paid by the hour, and we were not very smart to be killing ourselves and, by virtue of that, making even less money. We needed not to speed up, but to slow down. They agreed. Mr. Solovev apparently did not agree. He must have been listening from behind the wheel of his new truck. When we got back at the end of the day, he relieved me of duty, so to speak. I was unemployed, but the general course of my life had been established. Question everything, and never let authority get too comfortable with things. A few years later, after a few more jobs, I wound up with what looked like a real cake position. I had been washing dishes in a local Italian restaurant called Musicaro's, cursing tomatoes and baked-on mozzarella cheese for a year or so, and learning to make pizzas on the side. I made a damn good pizza, and ate a number of them as well. For a kid of 17, this was not only a dream come true, but arguably highly skilled labor. But the kitchen at Musicaro's was not air-conditioned, and spending several hours standing over a steamy sink or beside a 700-degree pizza oven made the hell the priest was threatening us with over at St. Rose's seem like a weekend in the mountains. When the new mall opened behind my house, I went to peddle my considerable skills at the new Sbarro's Pizza. Chain store pizza? What a horrible idea. Pizza making was an art, and people who made pizza were artists. I got offered the job, and I took it. At $2.25 an hour, I was going to learn the meaning of windfall after the $1.90 I was getting at Musicaro's, and there was air conditioning, and there was the wonderful distraction of watching the girls walk by all day while I was flipping and slathering and slinging. But there was a problem, a tiny little scale with a cup on it. I was supposed to exactly weigh the amount of cheese that I was applying to a Sbarro's pizza. I just could not do it. If I was going to be making pizzas, they had to be the best pizza I could make, and I flung cheese on them to beat the band until I was rightly satisfied with the result. One day, I took note of a rather nattily dressed gentleman watching as I applied my art to the well-stretched dough. I figured I must have been pretty impressive, and I might have been had that man not happened to have been Old Man Sbarro himself. That night was my last night as a pizza guy. I had made great pizza, I maintained my integrity and my honor, and as a result, I was yet again unemployed. But it was then that the heavens opened, and I was granted the job of my young lifetime. I got a position as a delivery guy for the local Chicken Delight store across from Marjorie Post Park. You might recall their snappy jingle, "Don't cook tonight, call Chicken Delight." Here was the deal. I had to deliver chicken in an orange Volkswagen Beetle that had a chicken holding a platter of chicken perched on the roof. The faster I did a delivery, the more likely I would get back in time for the next one. I got paid hourly and made tips to boot, and I got to drive that Beetle just as fast and hard as I could. There was a big metal box in place of the passenger seat that was heated by a can of Sterno. Even now, I wonder just how many brain cells I lost breathing that goop all day and night. But what was worse was that all the hot chicken made the windows in the car steam up, and I could hardly see where I was going. In the pouring rain, in the dead of winter, I had to drive with the windows open, wiping the windshield constantly with a kitchen rag. I got a lot of looks in those days, whipping that car around corners and through traffic on Merrick Road, mostly because I had a chicken on the roof, holding a platter of chicken. When there were no deliveries, we drivers had to go in the back and cut up chicken. The chickens came whole in big crates, 24 each. 2 guys stood on either side of a chopping block with razor-sharp knives and cut each chicken into 8 parts. In the process of cutting 10 or 15 cases, one could get bored. To solve this problem, we had races to see who could cut the case up the fastest. I cannot recall just how long it took, but it was a matter of minutes. I could cut up a single chicken in about 30 seconds. Sometimes there would be a little blood on the chopping block along the way. Some of it was mine, along with some tiny slivers off my fingers. It never affected the taste of the chicken, which was absolutely delicious, and we ate a lot of it every day. After 2 years I spent there, I could not stand the smell of chicken for about another 2 years. I've gotten over that and stop in on occasion to visit with our former arch-enemy, the Colonel. If he only knew. The fellow who owned the store, a nice man named Larry, also had another store that he personally managed in Babylon, and so he left the Massapequa store to be managed by 2 deadheads, who were also my bosses. I won't reveal anything else on that subject. But there were nights that the police from the 7th Precinct would call the store to report that they had just seen one of us taking a turn in Nassau Shores or Harbor Green on 2 wheels. Despite that, this was not discouraged. One night, as I weaved through traffic in the dark, I happened to note a pair of red lights flashing through the fog on my rearview mirror and pulled over. The officer asked if I had any idea just how fast I had been going, and I told him no, the speedometer was broken. It actually was, but it was irrelevant. It is not a good idea to be looking down at a speedometer when you are going that fast. For reasons I still wonder about, the policeman let me go with just a warning. Had he given me a ticket for excessive speed, I would have been fired again. But that would not have mattered. My father would have likely killed me anyway, or worse, locked me in my room for about 5 years without any chicken. There was only one strangely tragic chicken-related episode that I still cannot explain. It happened too fast. One night, I was driving down Merrick Road past Burns Park, and the chicken flew the coop. I heard a clunk and looked in my rearview mirror to see the famed chicken lying in the road behind me. And then, to my shock, someone going in the other direction screeched to a halt, jumped from their car, seemingly in an attempt to save the life of the stricken bird, and me as well, and then tossed it into their trunk and sped off. I had done the unthinkable. I lost the chicken. After nearly 50 years, the incident has never been solved. The chicken never recovered. It remains the most notorious, most nagging cold case in Massapequa history. I've not slept well since. Oh, and then I got another job where I got to wear a tux and eat prime rib for dinner.